wish a warm welcome to some of my new subscribers. I've had actually a handful over the last week, which has been kind of cool. Having been on and off YouTube, it's hard to know who's still watching and who is kind of fallen off. And so whenever you get a new subscriber, it's a new pair of eyes, someone you can connect with on YouTube, which is always exciting. Fresh blood is always welcome, and I'm glad you guys are here. So I hope you guys like this video. Today's look at Batman books is going to be a little bit more casual just because that's kind of what my mood is today. I've been doing a lot of video editing over the last week, so I kind of wanted to take a little bit of a break today and just kind of talk Batman comic books with you guys. I've got my stack of Batman books that I picked up today, and I think I got everything that came out this week for Batman. I picked up Batman vs. Bigby, which I'm really enjoying this. Not going to review it for you today because I haven't been doing regular reviews of it. I will do a full look back at this once it's finished. Just know that if you're not picking it up, it's a strong recommend from me. I loved the first 2 issues of this. A book that I said I was going to drop and didn't, Legends of the Dark Knight. I picked up issue number 7 today. To be honest, the main reason I picked it up was kind of just completionist sake, because I was buying every other book and it seemed weird not to be buying this one when I have been more or less enjoying it. It just hasn't been like the most mind-blowing book. I leafed through it, kind of thought the artwork was intriguing and figured, alright, you got me for one more issue at least. A new number 1 this week. We got Robin's issue 1 of 6. This is that round robin like story competition that DC held, where I guess they couldn't decide which stories they wanted to publish, and so they left it to the readers. Ironically, Robin's won the round robin competition. Coincidence or conspiracy, you tell me. I wasn't sure if I wanted to read this, but I figure I'll give it a shot, at least try issue 1, let you guys know what I think, and share whether or not I think it's worth it. And then everything else is Fear State wrap-ups. So first up, we've got the last issue of Nightwing's Fear State tie-in. Pretty excited to read this one. We got another Batman Secret Files. This one is The Gardener one-shot, which I'm curious to read this. I'm still not entirely clear what's been going on with Poison Ivy and Queen Ivy in all of this, so I'm excited for this to kind of elucidate that a little bit. And then finally, we got James Tynion's farewell issue for Batman, issue 117. So this is the last main Fear State book. However, we still have a couple tie-ins wrapping up next week. We've got Harley Quinn, we've got Detective Comics, and I think that's it. It's weird that the main story is ending before these supporting stories. It's just weird. And I've said it before, like this whole Fear State event feels like it just needed some massaging in terms of when each of these books was coming out. It just feels underbaked in that way. But anyway, I'm excited to take a look at these books. So I'm going to kick back, do some reading, and let you guys know what happened this week in Batman. So, I'm not done reading this book yet. I'm halfway done, it looks like, something like that. Actually, maybe more than halfway done, because there's a free preview at the end of this for Batgirls. Okay, so first of all, this book features Anarchy as a villain. I'm pretty sure Anarchy just died in I Am Batman. So, like, when this takes place, I'm not sure. Either it takes place before that, or this is not in continuity. No idea. But that's kind of annoying. Now, it is interesting, the idea of him being in this, because, of course, Anarchy was originally going to be the replacement Robin for Jason Todd, which I don't think I talked about that in my modern age history of Batman, because I'm pretty sure Anarchy was introduced in Detective Comics, and I was reviewing the main Batman title at that time. But having him in this kind of is fitting because he is like an aborted Robin in a sense. But once they defeat him, then they sit down and they're like, let's all talk about how we're Robin. And isn't that amazing? Or whatever. And And the idea of them all just kind of sitting around chatting is cool. Like, I'm down. But the problem is the dialogue in this. It reads, they just don't have any chemistry with each other at all. It's like these are all former Robins. They have all this stuff in common, but it comes off like they're sitting at an AA meeting and they're meeting each other for the first time. I don't get what they're going for here. Tim Seeley's trying to show how all the different Robins are different, which, I mean, they are, like, fair point. But, like, what is that doing for me as a reader? So far, not much. But I'm going to finish this up and I'll give you some more thoughts here in a second. Okay, so just finished Robins. Yeah, still not my favorite. So there's an interesting twist at the end of this, which I don't think is a spoiler because I'm pretty sure I had already heard about this, so it must have been in like the explanation of when this book was getting pitched or something. But you have this meeting of the Robins, and at the very end of the issue, there is another Robin outside that says, "How dare they have a meeting of all the Robins and not invite the very first one?" Implying that Dick Grayson is not the first Robin, it's actually this psycho lady. Interesting idea. Like, that's a good seed of an idea. The problem is the writing in this is not good. Tim Seeley has been kind of a mixed bag, especially recently. The stuff I've read of his, I generally haven't liked. This very much so as well. The initial fight with Anarchy was okay. There was some banter going back and forth that kind of fell flat, but it wasn't like offensive or anything like that. It was a little head scratching at times, but it wasn't like totally distracting. But once you get into the meat of this book, where it's about the Robins all just sitting around and talking, it really just ground to a halt, and I completely lost interest. So I don't know if I'll pick up issue number 2. If you were excited for this one, I'm sorry to say, like, this is definitely a pass. Probably not worth your time. By the way, I've mentioned it before, but I am really excited about this Joshua Williamson arc. I just for the covers alone. These covers are fantastic. Anyway, reading on. All right, Legends of the Dark Knight number 7. It was okay. You know, the thing that attracted me to this book was the art. It kind of has a Chris Burnham, Frank Quitely kind of a quality to it, and the fact that this is taking place in Europe gave the whole thing kind of like a Batman Incorporated vibe. That's not really what the content of the story is. It's just like the way it's seated. I just got flashes of that when I picked it up, and so I thought it might be kind of fun to give it a read. And there was nothing wrong with the story. Basically, it's a conflict between Ra's and Azrael that Batman's kind of in the middle of. And I think the big thing, which has been a problem for the last couple of issues of Legends of the Dark Knight, is this just feels like covered ground. Like, you know, this is dealing with enhancing Lazarus pits. We're dealing with that in Robin. I feel like we just saw Azrael a bunch of times. He was in Urban Legends recently. So it just feels like unnecessary reading. I'm not going to recommend Legends of the Dark Knights number 7, although, I mean, it's an okay read if it's something you're picking up. Like, I wouldn't recommend against it. It just didn't do a lot for me this week. So now the big question is, what order do I read these Fear State books? I am going to kick things off, I think, with the Gardener, just because it's kind of a one-shot, and then we'll go into Nightwing, see the big conclusion of that story arc, before heading back to finish up Batman 117. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm only on page 2, but really like the artwork in this one shot. Super vibrant colors, kind of a painted quality almost. Really digging that. Okay, really quick, slight correction. I forgot. I said before that Batman 117 is the big wrap up for Fear State. I forgot we still have Fear State Omega coming, which doesn't hit until December 1st. So that actually makes a fair amount of sense. Back to the book itself. So, Batman Secret Files The Gardener. I found these Secret Files books to be kind of one camp or the other. Like, it just feels like a complete waste of time, or they're like very, very interesting. I think the standout example for me is probably Miracle Molly. That's probably been my favorite of all of them. It had creative art, creative layouts, a well-told story about an interesting character that you wanted to learn more about. This one is somewhere in the middle, more so than some of the other ones. I think overall, the art's really, really good. I already showed you guys a couple examples. And, like, I don't know. I thought it was really well done at times. There are other points where, like, the anatomy just doesn't quite add up. So, like, on one hand, you have the one I just showed you, and then you got this one, where it just feels a little empty and a little underbaked, at least to me. But overall, I would say the art is a win. It definitely drew me through the book and was interesting. Now, as far as the Secret Files of the Gardener goes, this isn't really that. It's a lot more about Poison Ivy. They spend most of the issue seeding how Poison Ivy fits in with Swamp Thing and fits in with the Gardener, and how her powers are getting beyond her control. Jason Woodrue is a major force in the issue. You have reference to Alec Holland. So it's definitely centered around how Poison Ivy herself fits into the greater DC universe. It was helpful. I don't know that it gave me the answers that I wanted. Like, I really wanted to spend more time with the Gardener. We'll have to see how this ties into the last little parts of Fear State. But for now, kind of a middle of the road title. Didn't give me the answers I wanted, but was still worth a pickup just for the art, and it was competently written by James Tynion. Okay, so penultimate issue, Nightwing. Always a favorite of mine, but I just, opening it up right off the bat, I always miss Bruno Redondo when he's not on this book. This fill-in artist, Robbie Rodriguez, for me, just doesn't hold a candle to Bruno Redondo, partly because I don't care for this style of art as much, but also because Bruno Redondo's art just fits the tone of this book so well. So, hoping next month we get Bruno Redondo back. Okay, so Nightwing 86. This is a title that I've been dreading for a month just because you never know what terrible thing they're going to do to Barbara Gordon. The answer is ultimately not a whole lot. This whole 3-issue Fear State arc ultimately didn't actually add up to all that much. So basically, like, she's determined to take on the Anti-Oracle, aka the Seer. Nightwing hops in, helps her out, and there is sort of a false ending at the end of the last issue where it seems like Spoiler and Cassandra Cain are killed. They're not. You find that out in the Batman Backup story. So that's kind of weird. And then they're like, well, I guess we'll go fight Simon Saint now. So they go fight Simon Saint, win pretty much immediately, and then unhook a jump drive that apparently the Seer was using to break into Simon Saint's system and wreak all the havoc that she's been wreaking on Gotham City. It's kind of weird because, like, it seems like the Seer is supposed to be part of the Scarecrow's grand plan, but it seems like it was really just kind of a separate plot that was kind of going on simultaneously, because at the end they make a comment about how, I guess, we don't really know who the Seer is, and then you see her walking off into the distance, and the storyline is promised to be continuing in the new Batgirls ongoing, which they're advertising at the end of all of their books this week. So, I don't know, kind of an underwhelming conclusion to the Nightwing tie-in. That said, there were definitely a few chuckles in this. I enjoyed Tom Taylor's writing on it. It just didn't really have the impact that I think maybe it could have. All told, I would have preferred that this book just stayed outside of the Fear State event. We just had another adventure with Nightwing, adhering more closely to the plot threads that Tom Taylor's been building up to this point. Okay, so picking up with Batman 117, the question I always have to ask myself is, do I read the main story or do I read the backup story? I'm going to go with the backup story first because this is going to wrap up the Batgirl storyline that started with Batman 115 and tie directly into Nightwing, which I just wrapped up. So we'll see if that's the right decision. I'll be back with you guys in a minute, let you know. Okay, so it's definitely worth reading the Batgirls Backup after you read Nightwing. If you're reading Nightwing, like, this actually kind of feels like the last little part of that story because it's dealing with what happens with Barbara and the other Batgirls and how they're kind of setting up their new shop, setting the stage for the Batgirls ongoing series, which is of course advertised at the end of this as well. It seems like DC really wants you to be excited for Batgirls. I guess they were kind of teasing the idea of this Batgirls book earlier in Fear State or right before, and I remember thinking like it was an intriguing idea, but if they want me to be excited about it, like, they're gonna need a different artist. I can't stand this art. It's just so cluttered. I have trouble, my eyes have trouble like focusing on what the artist wants me to focus on. It feels like a jumble and just doesn't work at all for me. As far as the writing goes, it was okay. This is written by Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad. There's some kind of funny moments in this where they're holed up in a really crappy hotel, and they're showing reviews of the hotel throughout the narrative, which is kind of funny. The Batgirls freak out because the seer shows up on their TV. They throw their TV out the window. And then the next morning, there's the Holmes review, 1 star. Someone threw a TV out the window last night, which is kind of funny. But the art is genuinely so distracting that I almost find it unreadable, to be honest. So, really doesn't bode particularly well for the Batgirls ongoing starting next month, but time will tell. We'll just have to see what it actually ends up like. Okay, so this has been not the best week in comics, right? Like, just scrolling through here, what we got. It's like Nightwing, underwhelming conclusion. We've got The Gardener, which to me, great art, but felt like a little bit of a bait and switch. Legends of the Dark Knight, the more I think about it, the less I liked it. It just didn't have anything fresh to offer. And then Robins, which genuinely was a stink bomb. Like, it was really bad. And then all I had left to read was Batman 117, The Conclusion to Fear State, a book that I have been very hard on these last few months. This is the last issue. How did it fare? It was really good, actually. After all of my pissing and moaning, I really liked this. I think the key to these last few issues of Tynion for me is, like, the more Miracle Molly is featured, the more I like it. I find her character to be super interesting, really a compelling addition to the Batman universe. Like, her and Punchline are like two halves, two very different female characters that James Tynion's introduced. They kind of work in opposite ways, but are equally interesting psychologically. And this very heavily features Miracle Molly. She is integral to the conclusion of this story. We kick things off with more punching, which is annoying. The more they talk about the Magistrate, the more we deal with Peacekeeper 1, the more my eyes glare over. I just don't care about that character. But even though we get this big montage fight between the two of them, the main gist of this book boils down to Miracle Molly and then also Poison Ivy. So simultaneously we've had Poison Ivy in the sewer, and I was saying, like, why does this even have to be a thing? If this is all like kind of a distraction to get people to focus on the wrong thing so that Scarecrow can take over and Simon Saint can maintain control, or whatever they had going on a couple issues ago. There's a very satisfying reason for that, which is Queen Ivy and Poison Ivy are reunited, and then she's able to breathe new life across Gotham, and it creates a calming effect that brings the temperature down. And so you have this wonderful moment where all this plant life sort of grows up throughout Gotham, and everybody is comforted by it, which was fantastic. Like, I really liked the idea of that. What is typically like a villainous power that is always portrayed in a negative way actually comes through and saves the day because it's applied in the right way for the right reasons in the right moment. And then, of course, her and Harley get a little smooch on. So, thought that was a good payoff. I really liked that. And then, once Batman finally defeats Peacekeeper, you get a fantastic moment where he has to reckon with Miracle Molly, because she decides the best way forward is to reprogram the Unsanity Collective's machine, instead of to create this fear state, to wipe away all of Gotham's trauma across the city, and basically help the city start fresh, which of course is a horrible idea and goes against the agency of an entire city. And he has to basically spend the last third of this issue convincing her why that is not the right thing to do, and to take a leap of faith with him, and bet on the city, give everyone the chance to grow forward out of this event, and hopefully move on to, quote-unquote, a better tomorrow. Great stuff. Really well done. I love Miracle Molly. They got to do more with her. I really want to see them lean into Miracle Molly and Punchline. I think that those two characters are great. I don't care about the Magistrate. I don't care about Peacekeeper 1. But those two characters, for me, have the greatest potential legacy for everything that James Tynion has done in his tenure as Batman. So, satisfying final issue. I was really glad that this surprised me. I kind of went into it and I was like, man, this week has been kind of a bummer week, and I just can't see this one saving it. And it really kind of did. So, Batman Fear State, overall not the best final arc for James Tynion to go out on, but at the end of the arc, a couple nice moments really bring it home and remind you why James Tynion was such a fun writer on Batman for the issues that he was on. So that wraps up this week in Batman. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys have a great week in comics. Talk to you guys later.